Welcome to Ancient Echoes. Beneath the endless sands, forgotten stories lie dormant, silent echoes of ancient lives. Buried deep within the earth, we find tombs, rituals, and treasures that have waited millennia to be rediscovered. These sacred burial grounds, often shrouded in mystery and untouched for thousands of years, are more than just final resting places. They are gateways to understanding how ancient cultures perceived death, the afterlife, and the ongoing connection between the living and the dead. Each tomb, burial mound, and ritual offers us an invaluable window into the past, revealing what these civilizations truly believed about the journey beyond this world. From the arid deserts of Egypt to the cold, misty forests of Scandinavia, and from the high Andes mountains to the fertile plains of Mesopotamia, ancient peoples shared a profound understanding of death as a transformative event, a passage into another realm. The burial practices they developed, the artifacts they placed with the deceased, and the rituals they performed offer us clues to their views on life and the eternal. In Egypt, where the hot desert winds sweep across the sands, burial rituals were deeply intertwined with the civilization's spiritual and philosophical outlook. The Egyptians believed that death was not an end, but a journey, a passage to the afterlife where the soul would continue its existence, free from the limitations of the earthly realm. To the ancient Egyptians, immortality was the ultimate goal, and the preparation for this transition began long before death. They meticulously prepared their dead with elaborate mummification processes, and the burial sites were designed not only as tombs but as sacred spaces where the soul could transition peacefully to the afterlife. The tombs of the pharaohs, such as the famous discovery of King Tutankhamun in 1922, are perhaps the most iconic symbols of this belief. Inside his tomb were thousands of objects, including a golden burial mask, ornate jewelry, chariots, and even life-sized statues. These were not mere treasures, but were believed to be essential for ensuring the king's soul could navigate the afterlife, face its challenges, and ultimately join the gods in eternal life. Alongside these treasures, the Egyptians placed sacred texts like the Book of the Dead, spells that would help the deceased pass through dangerous underworld trials and reach the afterlife's peaceful realms. But it wasn't just pharaohs who were buried with care. Everyday Egyptians, too, were often buried with personal items meant to provide for their journey. These could range from simple pottery to tools, food, and jewelry. The practice was meant to ensure that the soul of the deceased would be able to live comfortably in the afterlife, surrounded by everything they needed for eternity. The elaborate nature of these practices, from the embalming to the grand tombs, reveals the deep belief Egyptians had in life after death, making it clear that death was merely another phase of existence rather than an end. Far to the north, in the cold, rugged lands of Scandinavia, the Vikings held a starkly different view of death. Yet, their beliefs were just as intricate and profound. To the Vikings, the afterlife was a continuation of their battle-filled lives. They believed that those who died in battle would ascend to Valhalla, a majestic hall ruled by the god Odin, where they would feast and fight alongside the gods for all eternity. The Vikings did not view death as a sorrowful end, but as a passage to eternal glory. The Viking burial practices were among the most awe-inspiring and symbolic. Warriors were often laid to rest in large burial mounds or placed in elaborate boat-shaped tombs symbolizing a final voyage to the realm of the gods. These ships, filled with weapons, shields, and precious artifacts, were designed to carry the dead to their final resting place in Valhalla. Some Viking graves even contained horses and dogs, companions in the afterlife. These items were carefully chosen to ensure the dead warrior would have everything needed to continue their heroic existence in the afterlife. The burial of a high-ranking Viking in a ship, as seen in famous excavations such as the Oseberg and Gokstad ships, is a powerful testament to the warrior culture and the belief that death was merely a passage to an even greater existence. These Viking burial rituals speak volumes about the values of Viking society, honor, bravery, and the unbreakable bond between the warrior and their gods. As archaeologists continue to unearth these ancient sites, they reveal more about how the Vikings prepared not only for death, but for the eternal life that awaited them in Valhalla. From the elaborate ships and sacred items to the careful placement of the dead, every aspect of the Viking burial process was a reflection of their reverence for the gods and their commitment to an afterlife filled with eternal glory. On the other side of the world, in the highlands of Peru, the ancient Inca people developed their own unique and powerful rituals surrounding death. For the Incas, the deceased were not simply laid to rest and forgotten. Instead, the dead continued to play an active role in the lives of the living. The Inca believed in the spiritual power of their ancestors and saw death as a return to the earth, a rejoining with the forces of nature. As such, burial rituals were centered around ancestor worship and the belief that the dead would continue to guide and protect the living. The Inca rulers, known as Sapa Inca, were buried with great care and reverence, often surrounded by offerings of gold, textiles, pottery, and food. These offerings were meant to ensure the dead would be well equipped in the afterlife. Mummification was a crucial part of this practice, as the Incas believed that the body needed to be preserved in order to allow the soul to return and offer protection to the people. The discovery of Incan mummies in the Andes reveals not only the importance of death rituals, but also the connection between the living and the dead. The careful preservation of the mummies and the elaborate burial sites demonstrate the Incas' deep belief in life after death, in which the dead remained as active spiritual entities who could influence the fate of the living. In addition to the material offerings, the Inca also performed intricate burial ceremonies that could last for days. These rituals were not just for the elites. They permeated all levels of society, from commoners to nobility. In fact, some burial sites suggest that entire communities were involved in the rituals, gathering to honor the deceased and to maintain the spiritual harmony between the world of the living and the world of the dead. Meanwhile, in the cradle of civilization, Mesopotamia, the ancient Sumerians practiced some of the first documented burial rituals in history. Unlike the Egyptians or Vikings, the Sumerians' approach to the afterlife was more centered around the underworld, a dark and mysterious place that required the help of powerful incantations and prayers. They believed that death led to a shadowy existence in the underworld, where the deceased were judged and their souls made to endure trials and tribulations. To prepare for this journey, the Sumerians placed the dead with clay tablets inscribed with prayers, spells, and divine writings meant to protect the deceased from the perils of the underworld. These inscriptions, often in cuneiform, served not only as spiritual guides, but as a way to ensure that the deceased would not be lost to the dangers of the afterlife. The Sumerians believed that without these texts, the soul would wander forever in darkness, unable to find peace. Thus, the burial practices of the Sumerians were designed to safeguard the soul and ensure its safe passage into the realm of the dead. Today, these ancient burial sites continue to reveal their secrets. Through advanced techniques like ground-penetrating radar, CT scans, and digital modeling, archaeologists are uncovering more about how ancient cultures prepared their dead for the afterlife. From mummies and tombs to burial mounds and sacred texts, every discovery brings us closer to understanding these ancient civilizations, not just through the items they left behind, but through the ways in which they believed death would lead them to another existence.